Hello, so we are going to be discussing Pear Deck right now, which is a Google Chrome extension. And what that means is that you have to download it online. So if you search up Pear Deck download, you can download it onto your computer and then it will work on Google Slides as an extension. And so to open up Pear Deck, what you have to do is you have to go to Add-ons and then you have to go to Pear Deck for Google Slides and open it. And now you have Pear Deck open and you can actually start to use Pear Deck. So Pear Deck is free to use. There are some features with it that do require a paid membership that a lot of schools have already purchased, but there's definitely some great free content. A lot of it is free, so you don't have to worry too much about that. So here is Pear Deck. You can see that there is a template library, so there are some questions that are already made up and some questions that you can make yourself. And so basically what Pear Deck it is a way for you to kind of jazz up your Google Slides for students. So it's a way to make your slides, your presentations, interactive so that students aren't just looking at the slides and maybe answering some questions that you ask out loud every once in a while, but so that you make sure that you're creating presentations that students are regularly interacting with, and sometimes in some pretty interesting ways. So if we go to the template library, we can see some of the templates that they have made up. So let me zoom in a little bit. They have some made up beginning of the lesson activities. What did you learn from the homework? Draw two things you already know about today's topic. Think of a question your classmates might have. What do you wonder about today's topic? So these are some like do nows. They've got some during the lesson slides made up. So summarize what we've just learned. Is this statement true or false? Drag your dot to how you're feeling. Keep going, I'm a little confused, or stop, I need help. Start a mind map by drawing or typing anywheres. Drag your dot to indicate whether you agree or disagree. So they've got quite a few little slides for during the lesson. They've got some exit tickets. And then they also have some pre-made slides made up for different content areas. So there's some critical thinking ones. And I actually really like the critical thinking ones. So they've got two concepts. You can edit what the concepts are, and then the student has to write up what connects these concepts. Considering some different viewpoints. I wonder. Consider what we need to know. What do we know already? What don't we know? So some pretty cool critical thinking ones. And then they have questions made up for different subject areas. So they've got some science questions. And so to add any of these slides to your presentation, you just have to click on them. So you click, it takes a minute to load, and then it'll automatically insert it right into your presentation. All right, and they've got ones for all kinds of different subject areas. Some pretty interesting questions. They've got graph ones made up, so this could be particularly good for a math class. Those kind of classes can spend a lot of time on graphing. You've got some Spanish questions, got different world languages. Alright, so there's quite a variety of different question types that are already made up that you could just look through, get some inspiration, some ideas. And so, I accidentally closed it. That's one thing with Pear Deck that I feel like, I don't know if everyone has this problem, but I'm constantly accidentally closing it and having to reopen it. Okay. So you can also make up your own questions. So you can make up your own multiple choice question. And so the way that it works is you're just going to insert the different answer options that you want students to see. Alright, and so your students will get those answer choices, and then you yourself in the slide are going to be writing the question. So you can do text problems. So in a question like, a text problem, your student is just going to be typing their answers. And so you might have a more open-ended question, like explain how, I don't know, the solar system works. That's not a great question, but you get the point. So they've got different types of question answers. There's a draggable one where students kind of drag the dot different places in a picture. A draw one, the draw one's cool, so students can draw whatever they want in a picture. So you might ask a question like to maybe draw the solar system instead. So we can change this one. So by clicking draw now we're overriding the last option, and so you can see at the bottom what it is. So students draw anywhere on the slide, so you might say draw the solar system. Alright, and so you can make your own questions. And, I would recommend when making your own questions that you make the slides look better than this, but basically it just means that whatever your slides are, you can just create your own questions. Alright, and then in between questions, like in a real presentation, you would have your content slides, right? So you'd have a variety of content slides, and then after a certain amount of content, you would put in questions. So a teacher might decide that after, every slide, if there's a lot of information on the slides, to ask a question. Or a teacher might say, oh, my slides are not too complicated. Maybe after every 3 or 4 slides, I'll put in a question. And so Pear Deck is really great for a variety of the Bloom's taxonomy because questions integrated into your presentations are really useful. So this can be a useful evaluation tool. So if students are going through the slides with you and answering questions as they go, they'll be able to evaluate how they're feeling about the content. If they're getting to a question and they're not really understanding very many of the questions, and they'll be able to realize, like, hey, I'm not really understanding this content, maybe I should ask some more questions or seek some extra help out. Or if students are answering the questions and they're really confident about their answers and they're getting them right and they're able to evaluate themselves and say, hey, I have a pretty good grasp of this content right now. Right, so definitely a good evaluation tool. It can also be a good tool for applying knowledge. So, if students are getting information from slides, they might have to apply it using certain questions. Right, you might not just want to do simple recall questions, but have them apply knowledge in new and unique ways so that students are able to see if they can, really apply what they've learned to a new situation. And then lastly, I think that this can also be a really good tool for remembering, for recall. So if students are answering questions as they go, they're trying to recall that information more, and that's kind of like a way for them to actively memorize the information. Alright, so actively quizzing yourself is a good way to remember information, and so Pear Deck is really useful for that. Alright, and then in addition to questions, one other useful feature I think Pear Deck has is this add audio to slide option. So you can actually record your own audio. So this might be helpful, especially if you have ELLs in your classroom, or if you have young students who can't read themselves. You can even record the instructions or what's written on your slides in the recording. So you can click record. Use the word bank to label the diagram. And then you can save the audio to the slide. And it'll pop up right there. Alright, so Pear Deck's got some pretty cool features. If you want to go ahead and start the lesson, they've got 2 options, which I think is really great that they have these 2 options. There's an instructor-paced activity. So this is what you would normally think of in a classroom presentation, right, where the teacher is going to have their slides displayed on the screen and students are all working and looking at the same slides at the same time, answering the same questions at the same time. So this could be useful on a whole class approach. But in addition to that, there's also the option to do a student-paced activity. So in the student-paced activity, the students are working through it independently. They can go through at their own pace. If they're answering fast, they're going to get through it faster. If they're going slower and need to take more time, they can do that. So they're working through at their own pace. So 2 really useful options. I'll show you what it looks like to do an instructor-paced activity. So let me log on to Pear Deck with my phone so that you can kind of see more about what this process looks like. So I'm going to open up Pear Deck with my phone, and I'm just going to type in the code. So it's really easy for students to join. I just Googled Pear Deck, join, punched in the code, and now I'm in. So I can start the class. Oh, this is our first blank slide. Okay. And so you display this, and now on my phone, I can see exactly what you're seeing right now. So I can go in and I can answer this question. So let me click on show responses. So waiting for responses, this means that no students have actually started working on it yet. But if I start dragging things with my phone, see? Okay, so you can see student responses as they make them. So right, as I was drawing the lines and labeling the parts, you were able to see the lines popping up. And right now, I'm the only one that's joined on this slide, right? I'm the only one that's joined on the Pear Deck with my phone. But if you had a class full of students, you would just scroll and you can see all your students as they answer the questions. You can see if students are having a good understanding of what's going on, or if a lot of students are kind of stuck and taking a while to answer, or if they're getting the answers wrong. So really useful information. Alright, so you can go through and see different graphs. So show responses, you can see stuff like that. And then you can just go through and have students answer the questions as you go. Alright, and so that is how Pear Deck works. It's a really useful tool. It's a great way to make slides more interactive. I think especially during online learning, this tool is incredibly useful, but even when students are in front of you in person, this is a good way to make things a little bit more interactive in the classroom. Thanks for listening.